Have you ever made a plan for your life that just felt so good? It's 3 a.m., you've rebranded your whole entire existence. You made a 5-year plan, you made a new routine, pretty much a new personality, and you became a new woman in your notes app. But then you realize you made plans for a version of yourself that doesn't even exist. On paper, it gives new level. It's given CEO, boss babe. It's given I'm about to eat this year up, right? But then when you're really trying to actually implement these goals in real life and you're looking around, you're thinking, why is none of this happening? My name is Hope Wiseman. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and this time last year, that was me. I had great intentions, but I didn't create my goals with my actual habits, preferences, and lifestyle in mind. For any of my plans to really work, I had to implement way too much change at once, and my brain and my body were like, it's just too much.
I could probably be the CEO of any company. Your legacy is who you are. People want to invest in a winner. Are you a winner? Make yourself a winner.
Owning a business is a skill set all on its own.
I'm Hope Wiseman, and let's get into it. When we're making goals, we don't actually think about the part where you have to decide, am I really going to do that? Am I actually going to make these changes consistently? When it's boring, when I'm tired and I just don't feel like it, or if I'm not in the mood. If the answer is no, then let me just go ahead and help you now. You're going to have to change your goals. If you have to completely change your whole personality overnight in order to hit the goal, then that's just a setup. The gap between what you want and what you're actually going to achieve isn't a do you have that dog in you problem. It's a is your plan actually working against your patterns problem? Because you're trying to force a plan that was really designed for a whole different type of person. Once you set your goals to meet you where you actually are, then you can start winning. So, to give you an example, last year I had a goal to increase Marion Main sales by $300,000 a month. And one of the tactics I wanted to use was showing up and working from the store. So I made it this whole thing where I was supposed to work from the building at least 3 times a week. And in my head, I was gonna make it real cute. I was gonna build this really nice office with this really nice setup. I was gonna be in there with my team with more FaceTime, more meetings, more visibility, right? Then I realized I had gotten really comfortable from working from home. So when it came time to actually go in the office, I actually was very uncomfortable and I was pretty much ineffective. Every time I went, I would just sit there and think to myself, I hate this. I don't get anything done in the building because people won't leave me alone. It's like the second I walk in, somebody's like, hey, somebody's here to see you, Hope. Or it turns into everybody talking and catching up and popping in to say hi. And I'm really trying to be nice because the store culture is very friendly and I truly love that for them. But I'm also like, I really do not have time for this. I've had to sit with the uncomfortable truth that really I realized I set my goal around the assumption that I wanted to be a in the office type of CEO, the type of person who's there daily, walking around, stopping by people's desks in every little meeting, doing the whole thing. But I had to realize that that's not me. And I do want to be clear about this. I can be that type of person. I am capable. I could do it, but it just drains me. And it took me a long time to admit it. If I'm in a space that doesn't feel good to me or I'm not thriving there, I'm not gonna just stay there because that's what I think a CEO is supposed to do or what a CEO is supposed to look like. In those moments, that's when I realized that I had set a goal for who I really wanted to be. But it's not even just that. It was really who I thought I should be. And I should have been setting a goal for who I actually am. I was forcing myself into a routine that didn't even feel good to me just because it looked like the right version of leadership. But coming into the office, and this is where the real key was, that's not where the $300,000 was. There's always tension between intention and execution. Intention is easy. Intention is you sitting there like, this year I'm about to lock in. It's the vision board, it's the notebook. It's the rebranding you and ChatGPT stayed up all night creating. But execution is different. It's that part where your habits, they show up and they embarrass you. When you start executing, you got to get real about 2 things at the same time. Who you want to become and what you're actually willing to do to get there. Those 2 things got to match because if your goals require a version of you that you're just not willing to actually sustain, you're going to keep restarting your life every single Monday. And I think a lot of us do this. We create goals for the fantasy version of ourselves That version that wakes up at 5 a.m. every day and eats perfectly, right? And drinks all of their water, never procrastinates, loves meetings, and is productive 24/7. I'm not saying that that person doesn't exist, but I am just saying that person is not most of us, and it's definitely not me. That doesn't make us less than. It doesn't mean that we can't be successful. It just means we have to stop building plans that require us to betray ourselves. Your patterns, they're not a character flaw. They're data. And if you treat your habits like data, you can build a plan that actually works. So once I accepted that I'm not really like a in the office everyday type of CEO, I realized that I had to get practical because I still had a goal I wanted to hit. I was like, all right, so if you don't want to be in the building 3 times a week, but the revenue still needs to go up and the team is still going to need your direction. So what are you going to do even if you're not physically present every day? What's going to replace that? I had set a goal for what I thought my business needed, but not what it actually needed. That is what led me to the back end. I started tightening our systems. And finally, this part was actually very fun for me. I was really having a good time. I am super fascinated with what I could build with different tools like Airtable, Zapier, ChatGPT, and Notion, and Base 44, all the different things. And there were nights that sometimes I would look up and realize, oh my God, it is 5 a.m. I can't believe I've been doing this all night. All of that work that I had put in now, I realized that we can track things like our weekly numbers and what actually moved revenue this week and what didn't. I realized what we were promoting, and I could stay on track of all of our marketing initiatives. I even started requiring meeting notes to be logged through Airtable, so I don't need to be in the weeds of every single conversation that happens. But even if a decision is made in those meetings, or maybe something important came up that needed an escalation, I could actually just look into my system, see what was discussed, and get the visibility that I needed without having to micromanage my team. I did all of this without needing to force myself into a routine that I really hated. I just leaned into what I'm really just good at, and I used my strengths to hit my goal. This only worked because I pivoted quickly. I pivoted into a plan that actually fits the person that I already am. That's what really working with your energy looks like. If you stop trying to become the aspirational version of yourself overnight, and start using the skills and habits that you have right now and build small habits along the way to get the outcome that you want, then you're on the right path. So if you're listening and you're just like, all right, I feel attacked, but I needed this, here are a few things that can help you close that gap without turning your whole life upside down overnight. Number 1, get to know the real you. I want you to start today and watch your patterns for the next 30 days or so. Look at what you actually do in a normal week. What do you avoid? Where do you actually just show up consistently with ease? What did you procrastinate on? Your behavior is the truth that you need to start with. Number 2, stop setting goals that only work when you're motivated. If the plan only works when you're motivated, it's not a plan. I don't really know what that is. I guess you're just like living on a prayer or something. But building goals that can still work on the days where you don't feel motivated and you don't have a lot of energy. Those days come around way more than the super high energy days. The goal is not to become perfect. It's to become consistent. Number 3, start stacking your habits over time. If you really want change in your life, you need to pick one habit or one routine and do that until it stops feeling like a chore. Then you add on the next one. That's how you become somebody without breaking yourself in the process. In reality, I would probably start with the hardest one and attack that and snowball it from there, because once the hard thing becomes normal, everything else just feels lighter. And that's what you're really aiming for. Habits that eventually feel like muscle memory. Number 4, pivot fast when you learn something about yourself. Look, if you realize that you hate being in the office, please don't spend 2 years forcing yourself into it just because it looks right or because you think that's the entrepreneur blueprint you're supposed to follow. Figure out what you're actually working towards. Then reshape the habits and the strategy around a rhythm that fits you and still honors your goals. You know what? This actually makes me want to phone a friend really quick. I'm gonna call my friend JL because she's literally the chaotic creative girly. And I mean that in the highest compliment. I just love JL because whenever anything doesn't work for her, she just pivots. She's the CEO of More Media Co. So not only is she learning how to own her own narrative, but she's also running a business and doing it well at the same time. So let's call her. Hi, my friend. How are you? Hi. I am talking to some of my friends right now, and I have some questions for you, if you're open to it.
Okay, this sounds fancy. What's going on?
Well, I just know that you are somebody who has really owned her narrative around who she is. You're true to yourself, all while running a business. So I wanted to know how you resist the status quo of what everybody says a CEO should be and still own yourself and own your identity, even though, most people are trying to talk you out of it.
Well, I think the easiest answer to that question is that my business was not doing as good as it is now before, when I wasn't embracing who I was. When I was fighting the fact that I was a chaotic creative girly, that my mind didn't work like everybody else did. When I was fighting the fact that my way of doing things was just my way of doing things, I was suffering the consequences of the lack of that lack of confidence. And when I fully began to embrace the person that I am, the way that God created me, and began creating systems around, who I am, and really optimizing just like the way I show up in the world, things began to flow more naturally, right?
Yeah.
The opportunities came, the right partners came, the right clients came, and the people who really accept me for who I am, and the people who have poured the most into me, my business, and my growth. You have been an amazing friend and mentor to me because of that. And I think it's just a testament to, again, honoring who you are at the core and not trying to shift to fit some kind of mold that the world is telling you need to fit. So
when did you start really owning that, and calling yourself chaotic creative girly? Like, a lot of people are not going to embrace a name like that.
It was like 3 years ago. I made a reel because my desk in my office was like extremely messy. And, when I looked at that desk, it was a reflection of like the way that, again, my mind works. I had my plate on there. It contributed to this messy desk, not because, I'm a mess, but because that was a priority for me. I had pictures that my mom had asked me to print out for her. Like, it was a bunch of different things. It was messy, but it was like a representation of the care that I put out into the world because of who I am.
Nice.
And I just put a lot on my plate, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's what comes off as the chaos. But when you really break that down, it's intention. It's, attention to the people around you. And so when I saw that, as I was doing this like funny little voiceover, talking about like, why is your desk so messy, whatever, I just began to realize like, this is who I am. And I love it, like at the moment I began to love myself in that way, this kind of persona manifested. When it comes to being a CEO, I think my ADHD and the way that my neurodivergence works makes me extremely committed to getting things done.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes a superpower more than it is, a deterrent for my business practices. My mind is able to ideate at a mile a minute.
Yeah.
I'm able to iterate really quickly and often without becoming discouraged.
Yeah.
And I think that is a double-edged sword, because there are days that are low and you feel like, why can't I just be as organized as I want to be and all these things? But there are days when like I can stay up for 15 hours and work on something and just commit to getting it done, because my mind works like that too.
I love that. People are embracing who they are and then finding their version of success there, and when I think of you have done so much for me and opened my eyes. I feel like when I look at you, I say to myself, okay, I can be a little bit more, frantic and all over the place and still be successful. Like, it doesn't have to look picture perfect. And you always make me feel comfortable with like the way that I am too as an entrepreneur. So I'm appreciative and thankful for you.
I love that so much. Thank you.
Yes. Well, enjoy your weekend. Thank you so much.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
I just love that because JL is so herself. It's taught me that I can be a little chaotic and still package those habits into something that brings success. And you can too. Once you stop treating your habits like they are personal flaws or character flaws and start treating them like data, then you can finally make a plan that works with you and for you. And that's when things really start to shift. You need goals and plans that are grounded in truth, because your life is telling you the truth all the time. Your calendar is telling you. The things you keep avoiding, they're telling you. The things you are doing naturally that are very easy for you, those are telling you too. So today, I want you to do one thing. I want you to look at your behavior over the next 30 days. Track what you really do, not what you plan to do, what you actually do. And then find a way to log that in real time. Look at what you avoided, what you kept pushing off, what you did naturally without forcing it. Then make your next move based on that truth. Deepening your self-awareness and making small, consistent changes over time will create a major impact in your life. I want you to drop one thing you're changing in the comments. If this episode helped you today, share it with a friend who you think can benefit from getting real with themselves too. You're already on the right path because you're here. I'll see you next episode.